Say it with me. Equality. That is what Coach Prime and Big 12 coaches want as it relates to the salary cap that they want implemented, name, image, and likeness, revenue sharing. Let's talk about why this topic came up and why it is rankling most Power 4 coaches. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you want to see a salary cap in college football? Because it looks like most coaches want. We don't see a whole lot of consensus on what it is that coaches want, from rule changes to how we evaluate players. But in as far as paying players, they seem to know exactly what they want, and they're using what I think is the most popular and the most well-known head coach in college football to get that message across. It's Deion Sanders. Talk about what he had to say here in a minute. I also want to remind you we have an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify, and if you are kind enough to go to Apple or Spotify and leave a 5-star review, I should say Apple and Spotify, and leave a 5-star review, I'm willing to send you one of these stickers and a handwritten note from me thanking you for doing that, because it means that much to me. We're fast approaching 500 ratings on Apple, 200 ratings on Spotify. You can help us get there, and if you do, go ahead and hit that form in the description below and tell me where I can send your sticker. So, really cool thing happened to Big 12 Media Day, day 2. Okay, they had a round table on stage with the 8 coaches that were there representing, from Arizona's Brent Brennan all the way to Deion Sanders, Colorado, Mike Gundy, who's got 25 years in this league, 20 as a head coach, to Rich Rodriguez, who's back in this league, who's also seen this done at Conference USA level and even the lower level, Jacksonville State. What is it that they want? They want to know that the playing field is level wherever they go, no matter what. And Prime was leading on this, and he's going, look, what I want is a salary cap. I want it to be equal for everyone. I want us to have the same opportunity to play for a national championship as everybody else. I think that is a very noble idea, and I understand why he would want such a thing. He actually makes this point. If you look at the 4 teams that made the college football playoff semifinals and you see what they spent in name, image, and likeness, you can see why they make the playoff. And he's got a point there, right? Now, he's also got the point that if with a, play here or there, you could be one of those teams in the playoff. Think about Boise State. Think about Indiana, right? Think about Clemson, SMU. But as you get into the deep water trying to win the whole damn thing, the idea of a Texas Christian getting there now just seems ridiculous. Like, they make the national championship game because they only had to play one semifinal game to get into it. Had they had to go through the rounds, I don't think they hold up, because I don't think that roster's good enough. Remember, that Texas Christian team really did win more games than it probably should have late, and just get some fluky stuff that had them in a position to have a really great record where the committee says, we think you're good enough even though you lose to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. So now you have a Colorado team that feels like it's got a great chance to win the league, just like this league is packed up and down, but also going, hey, there's 2 things that got to happen here from the start. One, we got to know that we're dealing from the same deck as everybody else. We got to know that there isn't tampering. We got to get the agents that are infested in our game out of here, because you'll make a deal and then they'll make another deal, and then you get parents wanting to make a deal and everybody's trying to get paid. The problem with this is, yes, everybody really is trying to get paid, because you have players that have gone from making 0 to making 7 figures to making $500,000, and you're not paying what you probably should be to someone who is inexperienced, who hasn't done much, to someone who has. I think the coaches would love to reward guys that have played for them and played well for them in the past by escalating the pay. But when you can afford to pay a true freshman, let's take Bryce Underwood here, $12 million, that's going to guarantee. It's really difficult to go to your starting quarterback, who's been your starter for, say, the last 2 years, and go, I can't afford to pay you $3 million, even though I know that's what you're worth. And that guy's going to go hit the portal where he could probably get that money. I'm thinking about some programs that have just come apart because the quarterback or the offensive coordinator gone away. Washington State, John Mateer, and Ben Arbuckle at Oklahoma is an example of this. It's frustrating for the coaches because they came up learning to do it one way, and now they're having to learn to do it more or less another way. And it's not the NFL way. The NFL way is actually what I think Prime would want. Having a salary cap means you're probably going to have, cycles of teams being good, teams being bad, because that's the nature of how salary caps usually work, especially when you get into the NFL draft and such. But to have a salary cap, you have to have a collective bargaining agreement. To have a collective bargaining agreement, you have to have representation for the labor. To have representation for the labor, you got to have a players union. It's real difficult to have a players union in a sport where you are only going to play for 5 years. Only. We get 7-year players, but the point is you got 5 to play 4 most of the time, okay? And now with financial aid agreements, you can come back and get your degree anytime you want. So what do? Well, you come up with these contracts that you think you can enforce, right, with buyout clauses in the nature, those things. And you find a way to give the union some life. I don't think it's going to have any teeth, though. That's really my issue. I think any representation that players get is going to be flimsy at best because there isn't a very strong players union at all in North American sports. And that's by design, right? Like, the owners own the league. That's why we can have lockouts, okay? They lock you out of the building. You can't get in, and the checks stop coming. And usually when the checks stop coming, people do what they normally do, which is game theory. They do what's best for themselves. If they can cross the picket line, feel good about it, they will. And that's usually what happens. You're going to have 17, 18-year-old kids that are going to stand up for their rights when you can dangle $300,000 in front of them to just, hey, sit down somewhere. That's what it's about at the end of the day. That is capitalism in and of itself. Your rights and morals come with a cost. You want to risk it for the biscuit, you're not going to eat. That's usually how this goes. I think the coaches want to see this enforced because it's going to make life a little bit more easier for them to move around, for them to put together a program. But it's also going to reinforce what I think is a philosophical hierarchy. And that hierarchy is management, employee. Not employee, management. At any time you feel as if the employee is running the program, nobody feels good about that, especially ownership, right? Because you want to be in control. And if you feel like you're losing control, the illusion of control is gone. You're going to do something to put that illusion back into place and remind people who actually runs this valley. Like, I take the John Dutton approach to this, all right? For those of y'all that don't watch Yellowstone or didn't watch Yellowstone, John Dutton owned Yellowstone Ranch. Huge ranch, based on the King Ranch in Texas, but it's the biggest ranch in the state of Montana. And he would tell anybody, listen, this is my land. It's not your land. I can do what I want on my land. And the government and or subdivision would keep trying to crowd in. He'd keep going, no way in hell. So much so that he ran for governor and he won on this platform. I am the wall that progress thrashes up against. You will not move me. You will not move us. I run this valley. That's what you're about to get. You're about to get a lot of people that, with Brian Seeley coming in as college sports commissioner, are going to remind you, I run this valley. Television networks, conference commissioners, the conferences themselves, they run this valley. It's their valley. If you want to play in it, you're going to do it on their rules. Or my favorite John Dutton quote, because this gets to who we are in America, Jack. You got a bunch of tourists on your land looking at a bear that's going to eat them alive, and you got John Dutton just trying to save their lives coming out there with a gun, and they're like, hey, what you doing? Running off the bear so you fools don't get eaten. This is my land. To which he says, or they say, this is all your land? Yes. This is too much land for one man to have. You should share. To which John Dutton says, and I felt this in my bones, this is America. We don't share land. All right? So you can even see it in the comments. I will tell you, if you are acting out, you're on my land. And in Oklahoma, that means what it means in Montana. You're on my land. When I talk about living in Tulsa and owning my home, you're on my land. When we talk about rights, mineral rights, water rights, oil rights, leases, you're on my land. I think a lot of people have forgotten just whose land they're on. Big 12 coaches want to remind them.